Greetings. We here at PLD Projects want to make it known that we wholeheartedly support the strikes by both SAG-AFTRA and the WGA against the greedy corporate studio executives. It is a fight for basic human decency. Our reviews, discussions, and critiques are in no way supporting the studios, merely dissecting the art and how these wonderful actors and writers continue to influence us on a daily basis. We thank you. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Review here on PLD Projects, the show where we're going through the entire franchise of the TV shows in the 80s, TV show in 2000 eventually, comics, books, all sorts of things. And we're, as we discussed earlier before we went live here or recorded, we're going to figure out where exactly we went wrong. It might be this episode. It might not. I don't know. We'll have to figure that out, but we're going to do it together. I, of course, am PLD, and with me, as always, Lego. How are you doing today?
I am here, and I am prepared to talk about this episode, and I promise I won't go too down the did Buffy see this episode theory. I have a theory.
Okay. I am intrigued to hear this theory. I did not think about Buffy the Vampire Slayer during this. Although I will admit, I love Buffy, but I never watched all of the seasons through. I got to like 3 or 4 of the seasons and I kind of stopped, and for no real reason, I never really went back to it. So I got to eventually finish it because I did enjoy it. I don't know why.
Am I one of those people that right now, if you ask, could give you an episode by episode breakdown? Yes.
That tracks. That absolutely tracks. Eventually, it'll re-enter my queue, and I eventually will finish it. I even had this idea. I actually had this because when I do projects where I watch stuff, I get into them. And I have a spreadsheet, and I had a spreadsheet of like Buffy, Angel, and then the comic books. And I was going to do the whole thing, and yet somehow I just stopped. So it's in my Google Drive somewhere, and I'll get back to it. But that's for a different
luck on that. Nah, let me know when you do, if you do.
I will. Now that I know, who knows? Maybe after VPAC is over, we'll go back and do a Buffy one. Who knows? You never know. I can tell you like that. Yeah, I can tell. But this is not Buffy. This is about V, obviously. And this is the 4th episode in the season. And as we discussed last week, the last week's episode, Breakout, was not seen because we believe it was the dog eating the visitors sequence that was deemed too violent. That was our guess. Our guess is as good as ours at this point, honestly. So this episode, I always kind of wonder how that happened. Like, did they show NBC? Because either way, when did they find out? Because they obviously had to do some shifting around to reintroduce characters to kind of make it attach more to episode 2 than episode 3. And it does a pretty good job at that, especially right away with Robin, because we see Robin right at the beginning of the episode, and it's literally like she just got out of the car in episode 2.
Okay, hang on. I'm actually really glad you asked this because I have follow-up questions. So this episode did air 1 week after the 2nd episode. So they would have had to have known beforehand. So couldn't they not have just edited the previous episode to remove the scene that was considered too violent, which would make the episode a little shorter, which would probably be fine because then you could just tack on a little extra commercial time?
I would think so too, because it wasn't even that big of a deal.
I don't get it. But watching these 2 episodes, I went in really wanting to think about, like, did we even need the previous episode tacked back in, or should it have just been considered like an extra episode on the DVDs? Like, should they put them in order, or should that have been like a bonus feature? And I kind of think it should have just been a bonus.
I think so too, because there's nothing in that episode that isn't eventually covered per se. The only thing that would have been interesting is there are at least one that I can remember more Crivet episode. So we would have had that introduction, but I think that still could have been not
was like such a minor thing.
Yeah.
And I already watched episode 5, and that completely just carries over from this episode. So there's only one thing that was one singular detail that I saw very clearly left out. But we'll get that in the next episode.
We're not going to talk about episode 5 because I haven't rewatched it yet. Obviously, that's for next show. But I will tell you as a little teaser, I think it contains my favorite bit of Marc Singer overacting action beat in there. But we'll get there. It's one of my favorites.
I gave him a nickname, and I can't wait till you hear what it is.
I'm excited. One of the big keys that I noticed from the top, which is interesting, is another question I have about the taking things out, but no Freedom Network opening.
No, that one didn't.
So, yeah, I missed it too. And that's kind of thing I mean, though, because again, when does that get taken out? Like, did they go back and add a Freedom Network later on for it? Like, is it patch docs? I can't believe they would have put it in and then not done one for this one, and then.
And it's not like they needed the time, right? Like there's so much of this show I've found when I was watching it is we're gonna have these characters in these locations, and we're gonna have them traveling from there to there to there to there to there to get information around, because telephones no longer exist in this world, except that they do.
Yeah, that's true. And they even probably, the visitors at least have cell phones, or I would think of some kind of cell phone back in the day, whatever it is they're communicating. We don't see it much, but with the technology they have, you got to figure walkie-talkies or something like is not out of the realm of a possibility there. And by the way, I called them V's. I want to riff for a second. When 2009's V came out, they actually called the visitors V's. That's Resistance calls them V's and things like that. And that annoyed me when I first watched it. I don't know why it annoyed me, but it did. But now that I'm writing notes about things, I actually use the term V's because it's quicker and easier. So now I'm kind of like okay with it now. So now I actually started slipping and calling. Just now I said the V's. What am I doing? I feel like I'm betraying the visitors. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm a little ashamed of you, PLD.
Be ashamed of me. It is terrible. It's absolutely terrible.
I do wish that they had given them like an alien name, like Martians, anything.
I mean, I guess
means that's
in
probably
the
not right.
expanded universe, as you would call it, I believe in the book, some of them are called Syrians at times by people because they're from the Sirius star, Sirius, I believe, like the Harry Potter one. I believe they're from the third star from Sirius.
I mean, you would have workshopped that one.
They're not visiting anymore. They've been here for quite a while.
Yeah, I think they're expats at this point.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so yet no Freedom Network open up right on Robin, and then almost immediately afterward we get Kyle Bates. Yeah, the new reintroduction of Kyle Bates, at least to Robin first. There he is on his dirt bike, driving through like the badass we know he is. And I'm gonna ask the question: which Kyle Bates introduction do you prefer?
Okay, I do prefer this one.
Okay.
However, it is a bit more of a crazy random happenstance.
Yeah, that's a very wide open space that I'm seeing.
And hang on. Wide open space. The cinematographer made a choice.
Mm-hmm.
He framed this shot so we see an open road and wide open desert space, and yet we cut to Robin running in the woods. Where are the woods in that shot?
That's
sir?
A great question. Well, because it's so wide, it must have been in the distance somewhere that you can't see it. That must be what it is.
It just made me so mad. Like, Robin is running in a square foot of tree.
and hiding behind that one tree that exists there.
She was hiding behind this singular bush in the desert, like freaking Wile E. Coyote or something. In fact, I would have liked that more if she had like a painted like background and was hiding behind it. Something. Or like Tucker and Dale, where he's hiding behind a singular twig. It's like that would have at least been a little bit more realistic.
Entertaining too. I like where your mind's at. Speaking of entertaining, I have to bring this up. I don't know how I figured it out. I found out that Blair Tefkin, our favorite actress from this show, I hate to say that way, I hate to be mean, but because that's sarcastic, definitively. She is a singer-songwriter. And she still like exists today. She has like a YouTube channel where she's singing and songing. She's going in front of like clubs and stuff. And she has only a few subscribers, very few subscribers, which I'm sad for. I feel bad for. I don't want her to not have any success. But her songs, I have to admit, they're god awful.
Oh no!
God awful. I clicked on it. And I wanted to like and go, you found your love. You found your thing.
Man.
Good. I just couldn't get through them. They're like this like rhythmic. Like it's like she plays piano. It's like someone who plays a piano or guitar but can't really play, so they just kind of like strum some chords here, and it's like almost spoken word. Like it's that kind of not even spoken word, because spoken word actually sound cooler. It's like this like monotone kind of saying, and it's you really have to listen for yourself. Who knows? Maybe there must be an audience out there for it somewhere. Maybe, I don't know. It's definitely not me. But I felt I needed to get this out there to our audience. That this does exist.
Okay, I just had to look her up. So I feel like it makes a lot of sense. She is from LA.
Mm-hmm.
She apparently was in the Groundlings.
That's what I heard too, and that surprises me. That shocks me to know it.
Yeah,
I don't understand what's going on here.
I would love to see her, because a lot of Groundlings aren't. I mean, they're really good at character work, like Phil Hartman and
right, exactly,
Paul Rubens and Elvira, Cassandra Peterson. Like they're all really great, and then you have Blair Tefkin. I'm like, oh, I guess
maybe that's what her music. That might be what her music is doing. Maybe she's trying to be like a comic music person.
Oh, like oh my God, what's his name? Biff from Back to the Future.
Oh, Crispin Glover. No, not Crispin Glover. That's
you know, Biff from Back to the Future. We all know him. He does like comedic music. He's very good though.
Let's see, Thomas F. Wilson.
Yes, Thomas F. Wilson.
Or maybe even like potentially trying to be like the what's the female duo? They're on TV a lot of different places, but they
something in Notes.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oates and Garfunkel.
Accidentally masturbating. I love that song.
I love all those. I love all of them. Maybe that's what she's trying to do, but she's not quite as successful with it. So, but if I don't know it, then that might be a problem.
Tragic. But okay, with her though, this gets later in the episode as well as in the next episode. I feel like they tried visually to age her up, because they gave her this like grandma looking outfit and haircut.
Yes.
And
yes.
Okay, she's only supposed to be like 18 right now.
Absolutely. She is dressed, and her haircut is definitely like early 40s at best.
Yes. If they were doing this today, she would have the Karen haircut for sure. So just imagine that, but the 80s version.
I think they had to do that. I probably did that specifically because of Elizabeth.
Okay, but the thing is, though, it bothers me as it pertains to Kyle.
Yeah, no, you're not wrong.
Because it happens later in the episode, but I'm like they're living together, right?
Yeah, kind of, sort of
together.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm watching this thing because, like, we know the unaired episode, but like Kyle's like in his 20s. He's definitely absolutely older than both of these teenage, even though Elizabeth isn't even a teenager, both of these teenage girls.
Yes. Yeah, that's very true. But I guess you could forgive Kyle for Robin, because Robin looks a lot older.
I mean, Elizabeth looks a lot older than her age.
Well, that's very true. Too. Runs in the family, I guess.
I feel like it's a trap.
It's a trap. It's a trap. Fair enough. So we also learned that Robin was heading up to Santa Cruz, and her father's camp is near Mount Wilson. I don't know. Do you know where that is?
So it's near San Gabriel, which is like 30 miles outside of LA.
So does our timelines make sense at this point? That's the question, because we had the question last week about the timelines, about whether or not she went
through a time warp. Like,
okay. That's what it is.
I mean, LA traffic can be bad. For sure. I've definitely sat in 4-hour traffic trying to drive like 4 miles, but I don't know what this girl's doing. Maybe she's a bad driver. Like, maybe she had a lot of pit stops. She seems like the kind of person, when you're doing a road trip with her, that she has to pee every 30 minutes. That is absolutely Robin.
That's absolutely Robin. You know what? I'll even cut her some slack. She did have like an alien hybrid in her body at some point. It might have changed her a little bit. Maybe her little bladder's a little weaker because of that. Who knows? But you're absolutely right, because I think not only is her bladder small, I think she stops off for a lot of like little snacks. She doesn't want to drink too much.
But I do that too, so I'm not going to criticize.
I don't blame anybody for doing it. I'm just saying that's a reason why it maybe took longer than it had to.
Listen, sometimes you just need some Starburst for an 8-hour drive.
Especially because she's also free for the first time in a long time, it feels like. So she's kind of like, maybe just, I'm going to take my time and chill and just have a nice leisurely drive.
Okay, I got it, PLD. I got it. She wasn't going anywhere. She just went to the beach.
That makes a ton of sense. Absolutely. All right. We have uncovered the secret, the mystery. We're good now. Okay. So, all right. So Kyle and Robin get together. Robin's obviously running. Kyle's going to save the damsel in distress, because that's what the badass motorbike guy is going to do, of course. And then the plane comes crashing in.
I wrote, this is the worst airplane crash in cinematic history.
It is so bad. It's obviously like real footage of something, because like it goes from like high def to this like crappy footage, and then jumps back. You're like, what the hell is that? Why are we even bothering? Like, just you hear it, look up and see the guy in the plane. See the guy jumping out of the plane. That's all you need to do. The plane looks horrible. Move on.
Like, I think almost it would have been better if Robin stumbled upon the already downed plane.
That would have made sense. Like the guy hanging the guy hanging in the tree with the
all you need. I wrote unconscious parachute guy. That's all you need. That's the only part you need. How much is a parachute?
Nothing.
I have no idea, but
I'm betting now you can get a parachute pretty easily from any kind of like Hollywood area, whatever.
I mean, if anything, you just need some fabric. You can fake it.
Absolutely. That's what I'm saying. So,
well,
anyway, we'll move on again. So we have Kyle, of course, who tells Robin to get off the bike and stay there while he goes checks it out. Of course, that's how things are going to happen here, because I don't know.
Wait, okay, so hang on. Because, all right, so he gets this message from the guy who parachuted out.
Right.
To go to the Club Creole, and he has a pouch, and it's going to have a message.
Fireman.
Right. Did they even need this? Because he's with Robin. So he would get to the Club Creole either way.
Right. Although, yeah, I guess because they could have actually done this much easier, because this is where the phone situation comes in. You're obviously get a phone just in. I mean, you can say that the visitors are tapping the phones maybe, but I gotta feel this is not the easiest way they could have gotten a courier in to LA to get this message to the resistance.
Shut the plane down?
Great question. We did see, it's funny thing is we did see a lot of sky fighters at one point flying by. I guess they're on patrol, I believe. It's been a little while, but I believe that was actually taken from the original miniseries when they were getting to the camp. I believe that's what that was, recycled footage from, I believe. So, but yeah, there was no battle. We didn't hear any lasers. All of a sudden, the plane's just dying. No clue. No clue.
Yeah, it's very contrived and unnecessary. Like, I would have saved myself the time.
Agreed. There's so many different ways I could have done this, but that's what the season's starting to become. You're starting to hear this. And again, even though I like this show, and even though at the end of the season, I'm going to tell you I still watch it a million times, I will. I am picking it apart bit by bit.
Yeah, I do that a lot when I do these long dives into horror movies, and it's like I love it, but I'm seeing the issues.
Yep, I'm getting it. I'm like, this is not very good. Not very good. It's nostalgia for me is saving it, but that's running short. So of course he gets the message, and then we get the big ones, the V bikes,
Yes.
the V motorcycles.
My notes say it's no horse battle.
Very true. Two things I have to say about this. First of all, the visitors definitely have gotten Stormtrooper aim at this point. Like, they are not that far away, and they are missing every chance to get them. There's like 5 or 6 of them, and none of them can like hit anything.
Okay, so I'm not as big as a Star Wars fan than yourself, PLD. That's probably the understatement of this whole thing. But is it fair to say that it's not that they have bad aim, it's that the character has plot armor? So
The plot armor is their bad aim, yes.
Yeah, so I think it's kind of unfair to say that the Stormtroopers have bad aim. It's not their fault. They're just aiming at the main characters. Now, when they aim at people who aren't the main characters, what is their shoot to hit ratio? Because that's what counts.
It is probably much higher. You're not wrong. You're not wrong there. So I guess hashtag justice for Stormtroopers.
Justice for Stormtroopers. I just made a horrible argument. I've gone down a dark path. Clearly, I would go to the dark side very easily.
That tracks. That absolutely tracks at this point.
I'm chaotic neutral, damn it. I swear.
The other thing I did have to mention about this is, I don't know if you noticed it this time. I mentioned it last time. This is like the second time I used it. They have the horror strings again. Like the visitor action beat is always with a horror string section, and it seems out of place every time they use it. But I still love it because I love the horror sounds. I don't know.
Almost all of the music seems kind of out of place now.
Doesn't it? Yes. There's only like one motif they use, which actually makes sense, but it's the creepy one. It's the love theme one.
Yeah, and oddly enough, I would, I say this in regards to most franchises when they don't bring what is very well-known music back. It's just a mistake. Like 100%. If you have music that people associate with something, use it.
It's a good thing. Nostalgia is a hell of a drug. But okay, so we get by. Kyle and Robin escape from the V bikes in a fun but nowhere near a horseback. Oh, he does get to do the big jump off the dirt hill. That's the only cool thing about it, because dirt bikes are cool, especially in the 80s. I think this is just tapping into this. This is the writers going, what's cool right now? Dirt bikes. Get him a dirt bike.
Yeah, I definitely think that's a lot of what this is like. It's like sitting outside and thinking, what do kids think is cool, and how do we incorporate it into the show?
Right, exactly. It's it happens in today's day as well, but sometimes like this type of thing just seems much more.
I feel like that was done more in the 80s and 90s. Now, here's the real question. Do you think that this was tested in front of a room of 14-year-old boys?
That's a great question. I would say 14-year-old boys would probably approve of it and go for it. Absolutely. They would like that aspect of it. So yes, I'm going to say yes, it was. Or at least like the producer's 14-year-old boy's son or something like that. Might have been an audience of one who basically would represent the 14-year-old boys.
Oh, but was Kyle brought in to be cool for the 14-year-old boys, or to get that 14-year-old girl crowd?
I think that's where it comes in handy for both. He can actually cross over. He's hot enough to be for the girls, but he's badass enough of a dirt bike rider to be for the guys.
And do we think it's intentional that he looks like all of the characters from 21 Jump Street merged?
Absolutely not a coincidence. They're tapping into that hot spring of action at that point.
The whole time I'm watching this, I'm like, just jump down on Jump Street.
I wonder, actually, when did Jump Street, was that in production?
Okay, I was thinking about it. I'm like, I don't know if the time matches up or not.
It's close, because I know it was on around, I think Jump Street was a little later. Maybe Jump Street actually took its influence from Kyle Bates.
Well, no, because it had to be around the same time because Nightmare on Elm Street's 84.
87. So Jump Street obviously watched Kyle Bates in action and decided to make that a bunch of Kyle Bates characters.
Interesting.
Yeah, April 12th. He does. Jack looks a little young for that, to be honest with you. Huh. Interesting, though.
That's wild. Time is weird.
It is very weird.
And actually, I should apologize to Robin for what I said. Disregard. Give her 2 years, she'll look 5 years younger.
Disregarding. All right, so we move up to the mothership. Diana and Lydia have their back and forth, or Lydia kind of explains what's going on, or shows her what's going on. We get this quick, plot-heavy device that, okay, Elizabeth is going to be moved to New York.
Yeah. I don't know how they know.
That's a great question. Because I guess they're monitoring transmissions somehow. I guess that's what they get into the phone call for. Because I feel like what happened is they're monitoring transmissions. So the New York Resistance sent out word that we're going to do this, but then couldn't send the details out. They sent the details out by courier, so they could know what's going on, but they couldn't have the full plans. Maybe. But can I ask though, getting Elizabeth to New York, don't they think they should? Are they giving up on Robin completely? Is that what that is, or like? Because I don't know. If I have a 2-year-old, I want to get. I mean, we're in an open city, by the way, so we're in a relatively peaceful place. Wait till we figure out where Mom is before like sending her off on a plane.
Okay, I have so many follow-up questions in regards to all of this. Okay. One, absolutely give up on Robin. Let's just move past that.
That's us. Okay.
Next step, why New York? They aren't saying it's also an open city. They aren't saying there are no visitors there. They aren't saying anything. And we do know there are places where the visitors aren't going because the red dust is still effective. So why not send her to one of those places?
I think New York is. So New York is one of those because it has a cold winter. Like if you go back to the episode.
You're telling me they're going New York over like Wisconsin or a Dakota?
I'm sure. I guess they're thinking that the resistance is probably strong in New York because they had a big city. So they had
border of Canada. Alaska exists.
Or even here, take this out. And again, this might be my expanded universe knowledge and knowing. I can't remember. I think we've actually talked about this, but I can't remember if it was actually mentioned. I believe her family is in Chicago. So like Polly and Katie Maxwell are in Chicago with her.
They don't exist at this point. We've killed the dad. The whole family's gone.
They all just died.
That was the other thing that I felt that they didn't get in this episode is that does Robin know her dad is dead or no?
Not yet. Not as far as we know.
Because in the next episode, not mentioned.
Yep.
They killed him and forgot about him.
Really? He hasn't been dead for 2 episodes now, and it's already pretty much forgotten.
And how much time has passed? Because I feel like so much time has passed.
But yet, Robin didn't look that worse for wear after having left the end of episode 2 from the car, considering she's out in the middle of nowhere. Doesn't look that much worse for wear. Who knows? And by that, we did miss that breakout. Donovan does tell her about Robert in Breakout. But that's not canon anymore, I would guess.
No.
I don't know. It's a good question. Good questions. I wonder if I'll ever that. I don't know if they actually do. I wonder if I got fooled by watching all these, because all these years, whenever I've rewatched it, I have watched Breakout. I've watched the reinserted episode. So I wonder if because Donovan told her there, I just fooled myself into thinking that she knows. Even though
she does not. I was trying to pay pretty close attention. I didn't see her getting that information.
Well, we'll keep that in mind.
It feels like they really just forgot about him.
Maybe it is. Maybe that's sad. Hero of
best character.
Yes, I know. I felt so bad because I knew you didn't remember. I knew how much you loved him. I almost wanted to break it to you, but I didn't want to spoil it. I wanted at least to be unveiled as it came on, but I watched it and went, poor Lego.
Well, there was another interesting thing though with Diana and Lydia in that. So Diana's talking about Elizabeth still, and she's talking about her being a hybrid between humans and visitors, and that she can help end the war.
How?
Why would Diana even want that? In what way can she help end the war? I am so confused by this.
It just, I mean, I will pass along. Here's what I'll pass. I'll say that Diana saying the end of the war. I think by Diana saying that just means that ending the war by conquest. I think so. That's her.
But what way are genetics going to help with that?
That is a great question. That's what I don't understand, because her genes contain information that could help us end the war in a matter of weeks. What could her genes possibly contain? Unless the only thing I can think of is that Diana, as a scientist, this makes sense intuitively, that if the resistance had developed an antitoxin, they did it from Elizabeth because of what happened.
The thing is, we know that's not what happened.
But if Diana, well, that is how they got the red dust. They got the cells. They were able to use, looking at the visitor cell, looking at the Elizabeth cells, how they were able to determine, the human cells aren't taking on this bio, that she has the red dust in her and was exposed to it or whatever. But the one that's in the could kill the visitor hybrid, didn't kill Elizabeth. I mean, Diana figured that out. But either way, I still think that's kind of weak sauce, because I got to figure at this point, Diana hasn't been able to get her hands on any of the pills at this point. Like, you go to on LA and Open City, they couldn't find any fifth column stuff that had pills to take a sample and just recreate it. It is weird. I don't know. There's a lot of that going on in this episode, though. There's a lot of that going on.
So, also a show I watched a lot of and can give a tragically detailed, synopsis of the whole show. Supernatural. So there is a season in Supernatural. Leviathans. All right.
Yeah.
Okay. They put this, I don't know what exactly it is, this additive in coffee creamer. I would be so dead. But anyway, and then later they decided to change their minds, and they put it in what is known as the turducken. And when people eat it, they become very complacent. And so this allows them to just kind of be lazy and almost catatonic and gain a lot of weight, because the Leviathans, much like the visitors, eat people.
Yeah.
This is genius.
Yes.
That show only went on, or that season was only one season 7. But like in season 7, they essentially truncated what V was doing significantly better. And that was the worst season of Supernatural, in most people's opinion. But like comparatively, significantly smarter.
That's great. I never thought
you couldn't just drug humans' food supply. It's so simple, Diana.
And yet Robert Singer produced both.
Oh my God.
How did Robert Singer learn from his mistakes? We got to get V right this time, guys. We'll make it this way.
So they'll never notice.
But they can't get it by you, Lego. They will not be able to get it by you. That's why we hired you. The other bit of storyline that goes on in this little short segment here is we get to see Sean Donovan's back. Inspired you to write me a DM, which we usually don't talk much about what we do when we watch the shows until we get on channel. But inspired a DM from you to me about Mr. Donovan's son.
He's the worst, PLD. He's the worst. Not only is he the worst, at this point, I have to recategorize. I have to give an apology. I might need to get her a muffin basket. I'm so sorry, Robin. I was wrong. I was so wrong. Here we are in this tragic series of events, PLD. We've gone down a dark path. We have Sean, who looks like he's 16. He's been recast with, I believe the actor's name is Nicky Katt.
Yes, Nicky Katt, who was in Dazed and Confused. And he was like the bully in Dazed and Confused. He was not a very big character. They're at like the party in the woods, and he like fought and punched out. Yeah, I
know you're talking about. The other guy got that one punch in, and that's all he wanted. Then he got his ass kicked. But I know you're talking
That's
about.
right. That's him. And also in Boston Public, which I watched back when it came out, the Boston High School TV show, whatever. That's about it, though. But yeah,
he's. I wrote at the end of this, but I'll go ahead and say what I wrote now. He's the new Daniel. Without the creepy predatory thing, he's the new Daniel.
He is. I feel bad though because he's not doing it out of. He doesn't. It's not desire. It's not power hungry. He got converted. Although, that's the question I have: does conversion wear off?
I don't think that's what it is anymore. But I don't know. It's
because
not
he got the drug. The drug they give him another dose of Procol or something to that effect. It's the Procol supposedly. At one point, Dinah says, as long as the boy is on the Procol, his mind is ours.
Oh, okay. I misheard. I thought they were talking about Donovan.
No, that's Sean. That's okay. Sean. Oh boy. There's another medicine that Donovan gets later on, or whatever later. Mike Donovan gets, and at this point, Sean does get it seems like because she asks him about Mike, and Sean says, "I'm about to leave my father alone," and then she goes, "Get him a dose of Procol, and it'll be okay." The next time we see him, he's the Daniel character. So I give credit where credit's due. He is an enemy of the state at this point, but it is not his fault.
Okay, so we're saying he's the Manchurian candidate.
Yes, that I will say he is the Manchurian candidate at this point. I don't know what that means, but I'm going to go with it for now. So that's actually I had notes. This is like a 2-second scene, so barely anything seen, and it's all my notes were just like explored about that conversion. Elizabeth's genes. What's going on? Diana and Lydia's little relationship here that's continually being actually one of the best parts about the show, one of the more intriguing things about the show. And I wish they could have gotten to it a little bit further. A little further, but also a little, it stays too surface level. I want to get a little more depth into it eventually. But then again,
yes. I feel like they don't really go very deep into anything. They're too busy having characters go from point A to point B and then back to point A again.
Right. That's right. So after that's done, after we have the idea, we get to see Kyle and Robin make it back to their house, to Kyle's house. But obviously he's the son of a rich, Nathan Bates is rich. And so I don't think Kyle, the guy who just dropped out of Stanford, owns this house. It's got to be his father's house that Kyle lives in, like not that Nathan lives in. Nathan bought this house for what I'm trying to say. But I love that they get there and Kyle's like, all right, stay here. I got to take care of some business. Robin's all upset. And I was like, I know you're missing your daughter. We'll get there.
Why wouldn't Nathan tell her what the parachute guy said? It's just because at this point, if he said anything, Club Creole, she would know. And also, we know there are so many people are like the people who are the heroes of this battle are very public. Wouldn't people know that her father was one of the big heroes and that she's related to him? So wouldn't he identify her? Many follow-up questions.
I will cut Kyle some slack, or the writers some slack about Kyle, because Kyle's pretty self-absorbed and pretty like doing his own thing. He might not know who Robert Maxwell is, or maybe not even think that they're related. Somehow just think that's another Maxwell's not that uncommon of a name. Here's what I don't get. Robin's back to Kyle's house. Yes, this is where we get the part where we say telephones don't exist. Robin can't go into Kyle's house and call any of the resistance people she knows. Try calling her father. Try calling Julie. Try calling Donovan. Like, all people try calling the Club Creole. Like, she should be smart. She has access to a telephone, working telephone now. She's looking for her daughter. She's just, not going to bother? Does she?
Yeah, she's just, PLD. She real dumb. She and Elizabeth, I wrote down, she and Elizabeth, just throughout this whole series thus far, they're giving dumb blonde energy.
At least Elizabeth kind of has a little bit of excuse. You can kind of say she's, 2 years old.
She's 2. It's fine. So, we forgive her.
But Robin, no. Robin's got big dumb blonde energy. Absolutely. She's not even a blonde. Anyway, so Kyle does go, and we get our first of 3 Willyisms. Like I like to call them. 3 times he gets the word wrong. First being the strangler at the door.
I mean, he could be right. 1984, there were a lot of serial killers back then.
Absolutely, they were hot
And this
topic.
strangler's looking to burn someone, you know,
Yeah.
like he's like a dangerous guy.
Right. Oh my god.
But the lack of consistency regarding Willyisms kind of bothers me, because it's like if Willie's talking from his own like thought and getting the word wrong, that totally makes sense. But repeating something someone else said and getting it wrong doesn't make sense.
No, I agree there. I agree.
Like, I could understand maybe a mispronunciation in terms of accents, but like substituting words out when he's just hearing them, okay.
Right,
like,
that's wrong.
I'm starting to think Willie might be dyslexic.
Yeah, maybe it's true. Maybe we just didn't have the series didn't last long enough to really dive deep into the early childhood education of Willie.
And his doula powers aren't even in use right now. I have more to talk about Willie in the next episode because that's a whole thing. But I mean, in this episode, I wrote what the actual F is Willie wearing in an upcoming scene. He looks like he read Oliver Twist or something. I don't.
He did. That's actually very true. I was like, what the? Why is that? Why are you wearing that on your head? That's just not his LA 1984.
They just don't know what to do with poor boy Willie.
They know only one thing to do. Show. We need to have at least one mispronounced word or one wrong word per episode. There's like a quote, and they went a little overboard this time with 3 of them. I feel like they got 3 of them in this one. The guy, the producer, probably went, "Don't need 3 an episode. Just give him one. Give him one solid. That's all you need. Less is more, guys. Less is more. We need more scenes with people going from A to B."
Because that's what the show is.
That's
it's Lord of the Rings. This is why I like it.
That's it. Walking.
Crack code.
So then we get Kyle's actual reintroduction to Donovan and Ham, which is a little bit almost word for word for Ham and Kyle. Which one did you like better in this one? Did you prefer the Ham and Kyle at the camp, or Ham and Mike Kyle at the Club Creole?
Okay, so I do prefer the camp. Just overall, I do think the whole camp thing was better. And I think this one, they were kind of just being, again, so contrived, a bit lazy with it. But I just adore Donovan and Ham together more and more. So I just don't even care. Just at this point, drop all the other characters out and just give me a buddy cop movie with them.
I fully agree. That's what if you had a cut character, which they eventually started doing. Obviously, that's a little bit of a spoiler if you're first time through the series. They're having budget issues. They eventually start cutting character. And you see them drop left and right eventually. Donovan and Ham, just keep them, and you have the show. You really do. Any other resistors can come and go as need be here and there. You can have a lot of red shirt resistance people. Donovan and Ham are your show. But they don't get that. They don't get that. Although there is someone coming soon. We'll talk about just marking this down as something we're going to have to come back to as far as Donovan and Ham's camaraderie go. A couple of episodes from now, I'm going to point out this episode if I remember. Probably won't remember it, but somebody who's watching this will remember me saying that, and then they'll get there.
Is it the fact that they completely keep forgetting that Donovan and Julie are supposed to be a couple, and they just keep pairing up Donovan and Ham because they realized that chemistry was so much better?
Oh my God, that might be something to do with it. Yeah, Donovan and Julie are do not have very good chemistry. I think part of that is I don't want to slight Faye Grant as Julie because she's a good actress. I do like a lot of her performances. From what I've heard and from what I've read, she was not very thrilled with the weekly series from the get-go and was just unhappy with it as it went on. So I kind of have the feeling her heart wasn't into it as much. And maybe that's the case. I mean, I think all of them were like that to a degree, but Julie and Mike's just didn't seem to work as much because of it.
I feel like Michael Ironside and Marc Singer also are giving the best performances in the show.
Oh yeah.
Oh, along with oh my God, who plays Nathan Bates?
Oh, Lane Smith.
Yes, with Lane Smith.
Lane Smith. I also think that Jane Badler as Diana is doing a great job with lesser material. She look cartoonish, but she does.
I would also like to give a shout out to whoever's doing her hair and makeup.
Yeah.
And outfitting, because they're giving the performance of a lifetime.
That's fair. That is a performance right there.
They are giving 80s alien chic. They invented it, really.
They did. She is walking in that catwalk every week, showcasing it. Absolutely.
Like, I recently watched Frankenhooker, very well-known 90s Frankenhooker classic, and she's a bit of an icon. And then I'm thinking, like, I don't know, guys. I think maybe missed out on V, because I feel like Jane Badler should be up there next to her, Elvira, Dolly Parton, Morticia.
100%.
Right up alongside
100%.
all of them.
Sybil Danning. Yes, absolutely. Okay, so we get this point. I actually like this because of Donovan and Ham together. And I like when Donovan gets, like, very alpha, just briefly. He's, like, throwing a thing back at him. And he's like, it's so funny. You don't see this side of Donovan. Like, Donovan, it's almost like, I don't even know how to describe it to me. It's Marc Singer being great. But when he gets, like, pushy, he's so entertaining. I don't know if it's like the smile on his face or the looks on his face he gives, or maybe just because he commits 110% to it. That's why I prefer this, is Donovan gets to go a little bit harder on Kyle than
also,
he did initially.
He has a lot of energy in his movements. I mean, we talk about this all the time.
Yeah.
But when he like gets the code and realizes what it is, he like skips out of the door. And it's when I realized he's a golden retriever and Michael Ironside is a Rottweiler. And that's them.
That really is it. That is absolutely true.
And then
I could see him being a pit bull, maybe, but yeah, that's a very apt comment. That's
I don't know. I just get
Rottweiler. I like both. I love the fact that it happens too. By the way, how Willie kind of like runs after Donovan.
Yes, because I thought they were gonna go off together, and then Willie stays. I'm like, oh, I guess he's not leaving. He's checking the door. Like, what are you doing? The door.
I think he's worried that Donovan's going to slam the door and break the glass. I think that's what he's worried about. He's like, I got to protect my house.
That would have been hilarious.
So we jump forward. Next, we got another good scene between Nathan and Diana. I could say, like, they almost feel like they should be getting tiresome because there's a lot of repetitiveness of it, but they have great. I guess it's chemistry. It's just anti-chemistry there. They both have that kind of tete-a-tete where they're going back and forth with each other, one trying to one-up the other. And I love the ending of this one. This is where Diana starts trying to bug the office. And Nathan gets to have that, oh, by the way, one more moment. You're so concerned with peace. Don't bug my office. I might misinterpret your intentions. It's so swarmy and so, like, cocky. I loved it because Diana had nothing to say about that. And Diana's not used to getting that, like, put in her place like that. And Nathan does, and he can do it.
Yes, I don't quite remember what his laugh was, but I did write down, oh my God, that laugh.
Yeah, it was after that. It was like, it's don't bug my office. I might misinterpret your intentions. It's like,
yes.
I don't know what it is, but it was a great character choice, though, so it worked very well. I didn't like, I'm laughing at this because that was pathetic. It felt like to me like we're gonna laugh this off together because I'm not gonna like do anything about it, but I'm gonna let you know that I know what you're doing. Okay.
Although I also am curious about the whole bugging thing. Like, I'm just so interested in the politics of the visitors. Like, did they have a Watergate scandal?
They might have it. It must have at some point. Obviously, the communications devices are bugged.
Yeah, like they have so much of the similar technology that we have. It's almost like the people who invented the show weren't very creative.
How dare you be right about that?
Well, I guess we haven't gotten to the holographic generator yet.
Oh yes,
and
I have stuff to say about that. I'll tell you.
Oh, me too.
Oh yeah, I'm sure. So a break. Next scene is Donovan and Julie. Donovan brings the code to Science Frontiers as the world's most wanted man breaks into the most secure area. Just kind of walks up to the most secure area somehow and gets in. I'm guessing once again.
Have so many. No, I don't have so many questions. I have one singular question. Is he still wanted? Because in the next episode, it's clearly implied he isn't. But in this one, it's still very confusing. And I don't know how we went from point A to B and where he is and isn't. Like, I feel like it's just him being wanted is a plot device that occurs in episodes they need it to and doesn't occur in episodes where they don't want it to.
I mean, there's kind of a semi one here that he's needed because they're obviously trying to avoid seeing Nathan. Julie doesn't want Nathan and Donovan's there. Which, by the way, I love the fact again, Marc Singer. Julie's working on the code, and Donovan has to walk around the island. He can't stay still for 2 seconds. He is a gold retriever. It's just like you said. He has to like run around.
Now,
there it is.
Do we think he well, I'll be nice. Do we think he drinks a lot of coffee before shooting?
I think he might. I would say that, but he doesn't. From what I've heard, he was very naturalistic. He did a lot of which is weird because you'd think that would be more calm and more energetic. So I don't know if he just. Maybe Donovan drinks coffee, so he's acting like Donovan has coffee. Maybe that's what it is. Either way, somebody's having coffee, whether it's Marc or Donovan. And yet, I love it. I love it so much. I don't know why I love it so much, but it makes me smile.
Do we feel bad for the person who was responsible to for making sure that the scenes matched? The continuity person.
Oh, I didn't even think about that. I didn't even think about that.
I pity them.
Oh, that poor guy. That poor woman, or whoever it was. That poor person. Either way, okay. So it's quick. We get our coordinates. We get our mission briefing that Donovan has to hear, as we find out later on. Donovan gets out. We go back to the Club Creole, and Willie gets number 2 questions here. Kyle and Willie have a conversation. How does Kyle know that Willie's a visitor?
See, because he does watch the news, PLD. He should know about Robin.
You know what? Maybe you're right. Maybe Willie's famous that way. Yeah, it makes the only thing make sense. Unless something was to happen off screen, because he just kind of comes from, I guess you're one of them. And he's like, yep. Right is correct. Right is correct. That's what he says. That's actually 3.5 of Willie-isms, because he does right is correct, which is actually close, I guess, but still not right. But then they ask him about eating meat, and he says, I am a veterinarian.
See, that one makes sense.
That one does actually make sense. I actually approve of that one. That's my favorite one of the episode as far as that goes.
But also, we know that Willie does take care of animals. We've seen that in the previous franchise or previous entry. So he could have been a veterinarian. Maybe that's why he knows all this stuff about all the doula stuff. It's not because he's a doula. It's because he's a veterinarian. He helped lizards give birth. Well, I guess on their planet, rodents. I don't know.
Maybe. Oh, no, that's a good question. But humans, they do consider humans to be like animals and pets and stuff. So maybe that's why he understands humans' mating behaviors. Because they would bring humans to a veterinarian, maybe on Sirius.
Or wherever they have humans.
Well, I'm sure they would, but they would have. If they would have if they brought humans back from Earth, they would take them to as pets. They would be taken to the veterinarian, so to speak. All right, so Willie leaves Kyle alone. Then we get the great introduction between Kyle and Elizabeth, star-crossed lovers, love interests, whatever. We get the love theme and everything else. Kyle is love at first sight between both of them. And right away, we've been kind of leading up to this moment. Now, it's going to get worse later on, obviously, this is the beginning. But who thought this was a good idea? Who thought that this was a good idea?
Oh, my God. Okay.
Like, I guess, I mean, it's the '80s they didn't think about it, but that makes it almost even worse. Like
how? I mean, we do get these kind of plots a lot in YA, and this does kind of feel like a YA.
Oh yeah, it does. You're right.
But yikes.
It definitely gets worse because at least now you can understand Kyle not knowing what's going on, just seeing a younger woman who could be 17, 18, 19. He's only early 20s. It's not great, but you can see it's not as bad as when he finds out later on who she is and still's going for it. And that's when it becomes creepy. And Elizabeth, that's fine too. Elizabeth, obviously, she is 2, but she's also 17, 18, and we don't really know where her mind truly is because she's developed, but how far is her mind developed?
It would have been a much more interesting story.
What's that?
Species. So we have the girl who's like an alien who ages really quickly, and then she's going through like I don't know, alien pheromone puberty and wants to get pregnant and have alien babies. And she's a good specimen.
That would make sense because he is obviously the 21 Jump Street guy. He's definitely a good specimen. But they don't.
Interesting.
I agree.
But we're not going to tackle, female sexuality in 1984 television series.
1,000% no. 1,000% no.
We're going to do something much creepier.
We will talk about this more because it does, like I said, it does get worse over time. It's more and more creepy. But at this point, it's kind of a tease.
Oh, well, in my notes, I wanted to say that I wrote, why did they leave him alone? And then in caps, I wrote, why did they leave her alone?
That is also great questions. Of course, Elias has not proven to be very reliable about that. Elias just lets her play piano.
Where does Elias keep going in this club?
This thing must be huge. We don't see all of it, obviously, but Elias does go a lot of different places. He's only there when he has lines, basically. Yes. You would think that he'd be up there just like getting ready, because he says like it opens in an hour or something like that. They're just about to open. And yet, let me say again, Elias and Willie are the only employees we see. So does Willie do everything? Elias has to be a host. He has to be a waiter. I mean,
Willie is cooking. He's serving drinks.
Right.
I'm pretty sure he's bussing tables.
Yeah. So
wait, are you telling me that these writers in LA have never worked at a restaurant? Is that what I'm being told?
That's what it seems like, doesn't it?
That's impossible.
More likely, they just don't care. I think that's probably.
You know what? That's worse.
I know, right? You really could have some red shirt type just employees, background employees. You don't get to see, just see in the background, setting up. See a bartender, see a cook come out, something. I mean, the resistance is there. Obviously, the place has to get funded by the Club Creole at this point, so the resistance can work there.
Or at least like have just one other person down the front, and maybe have some like noises going on in the kitchen.
That would even be worth it. We don't actually see the kitchen. The only time we ever see any part of the kitchen is when we go in the freezer.
See the door open.
The freezer. We see the door open all the time. Absolutely.
You can have some noises. Exactly. Like have it go lower when the door closes, louder when it opens. This is not hard.
Not hard at all. Absolutely. Oh man! So we are not even halfway through this episode. We're already about an hour into the show. This is how detailed we're getting, folks. I'm glad you're sticking with us.
Well, it's just questions. It's just questions.
This episode is full of questions. That's right. There's no answers. It's all questions that we have to answer as the audience, and that just shouldn't be. We jump back to jump to the visitor delegation, and Diana gets a portrait put up. Because she's been fighting there for so much longer than Lydia has, because they've been there for what, a year, 2 years. Like Diana's like learning over like she's been there for 30 years. She got there a year ago. Lydia seems like a battle-hardened person. Like she seems like she's been like around. She understands.
We still don't know the lifespan of these lizards.
Good call. That's a very good call. But very quick, very good. They get to send Sean to get Donovan. And here's my next big question. When it comes down to it, related to the question we have earlier. Donovan has a house.
He's driving around.
Not only does Donovan have a house, a red Corvette. He has a house, and the visitors know where this house is. So they know right where to go. And yet, this is the first time they're doing anything about it.
Insane.
Like Diana has made it quite clear that she wants Donovan. You have an army at your side, and yes, it's a open city. You're telling me you don't have like a 5 or 6 battalion you could have gotten at any time to send them there. You don't even need Sean. Just hang out in the house, get there. Mike gets there, you knock him out. Sean distracts him for 30 seconds. What is he even needed for that?
Man, all you need to do is put some sort of poisonous snake in his bed and then just leave.
Yes. I mean, I guess they want questions answered. In this case, they want the questions answered, obviously. But how do they know that Donovan knows the details of the mission at this point? Like, are they just guessing that?
This is Donovan.
Yeah, he's the leader-ish. He's somebody, because Julia's not a leader right now. They can't touch Julia. That's true. Because Nathan put his claim on her, branded her as, he actually branded her the SF, like Science Frontiers on her, I think. That's what it feels like anyway.
Dark.
Am I wrong at this point? It is very dark. It is very dark. That's kind of what it feels like.
But also, they're using Sean as bait, which they're going to do a lot.
Because that's.
But it's just, I'm bewildered by the thought process here.
Yeah, it seems like, and actually, this is true about almost everything in the rest of this episode. They are going through way too much trouble to do something they could have done so much simpler any other way.
And also, they're making Donovan so stupid. Who would go back to their house at this point?
Good question. Very good question. You make it seem like he goes there all the time. You kind of make it seem like, I mean, they don't really say it, but I kind of feel like that's what I assume when I first watched this, that they all had to stay, like Anne Frank style. They stayed at the Club Creole. That's where their base was. I mean, I didn't think that there was, unless there was other safe houses here and there. But
now I'm wondering where Ham lives.
That's a great question. Where's Ham's apartment? What is his?
Because I bet it's more secure.
100,000 times that. Donovan, you dumb bastard. I hate that they made him a dumb bastard. But okay, so Donovan is kidnapped, captured, and knocked out, and he wakes up. And what we discover is this holographic generator that is made to look like his room. Anybody can wear this little like chameleon jewel to program, which is programmed to make Donovan think he sees somebody he knows.
Okay, I have many follow-up questions.
Oh yeah.
First of all, we see they're lizards with makeup on. They could just look like anyone they want to at any time. All they have to do is put an order at their makeup department.
Brilliant. Absolutely. And I know the writers probably maybe didn't watch it, but there was this little show at one point called V the Final Battle. And Diana had one of the best truth serum drugs ever known. So instead of doing this whole thing, inject, what's the plan for Elizabeth going to New York?
And we know that's already worked on him. Does it only work on someone once?
Right. Is that it? Is it? Has the resistance, like people come up with something to combat that and we don't know it? It just, the whole thing, it feels again like this was this would be kind of cool. This is how technology, they can make them look like it. And
okay, so I'm assuming they did this because they wanted to have that scene where it looks like Diana and him are kissing.
That is exactly what I was going to say. This was
and I bet that was in a trailer.
This work. It absolutely was. It was actually in the TV guide as well. I remember back in the day, like it was a still, kind of like I think it might have been the exact screenshot I used for our thumbnail here. I think that was it. It was kind of like I gotta remember to find the TV guide. I used to have it at one point. It said something to the effect of like, what's going on here, or something like that effect. It's like, and so you're like, Donovan and Diana are kissing? What the hell is going on? Now, I have great questions about this too. Here's another thing about this. Diana offers him pastries, which are actually mice. Now, I have a lot of questions, but question number one, there's no jewel on that thing. So how does Donovan just think it's pastry or whatever? And then, worst of all, Diana eats one, and Donovan kisses her right after. Donovan is getting mice guts all in his mouth.
Which seems very unsanitary.
Yes, I don't like it.
I have a lot of things to say about that. And I'm just going to sum it up into ew.
Ew. That's exactly what it is.
This is something that is done a lot in sci-fi and supernatural shows. We see it Buffy, season 6, episode 17, Normal Again, Charmed, Brain Drain, Supernatural, Labyrinth, Smallville Labyrinth, Supernatural, What Is and Should Never Be, in the Musicians, Star Trek Deep Space Nine, Stargate, Atlantis. It's in a lot of those types of shows. And that's the character wakes up usually in some sort of mental health
alternate reality, yeah.
And they think, and they're being told that like things are different than their actual reality. I absolutely hate this. There is only one singular way you can do this in a show that will ever work, and it's been done once correctly, and that is in the TV show based on the comic book Legion. And that's if it starts out there and then you get the unreliable narrator throughout. It's dumb because as audience members, we've been watching this and know that what you're saying is not true. So just skip to the reveal. It's very pointless. And I also wanted to note in my notes, I just called this scene abs.
Yes, I think that was the other thing. We are going to go for the female audience. We're just going to have Marc Singer shirtless. Although, quite frankly, I have the feeling that Marc Singer shirtless is just his normal way of life. I think he just would go around.
You think he does like a Viggo Mortensen?
I think he does. I think that's he's Matthew McConaughey type Viggo Mortensen type. Like he just goes around shirtless, and he has to wear a shirt only when he goes out.
Let's be real, PLD. If you look like that, would you wear clothes?
I'd be shirtless right now on the show. Honestly, it would be if I had like that. But you're not wrong. You're not wrong. But they were going to use that to their benefit to draw in the audience because he is a good-looking man. The other bit they get to do in this scene, these sequences, I'm kind of blurring a little bit of them together. They get to have the fun jokes, of course, which I did approve of. Two jokes I like: the Donovan and Ham. That Donovan has to go to Ham Tyler's wedding. His response is, Tyler, I would marry him. He's like, Mike, you're his best man. You're kidding.
I think they misinterpreted the relationship there a little bit.
Which is what I approve of because that makes a lot of sense to me. I would think that Donovan and Ham were a lot more friendlier than they really are. So I did actually like that.
And they also misinterpreted that Ham would ever have a traditional church wedding. Come on now. That is a shotgun in Vegas and Mary kind of guy.
Absolutely. There it is. So the sequences in the holograph generator are kind of split up over a couple of different scenes. But we'll get back there. So at one point we get back to Club Creole, and here's where Julie is not very Julie. She promises Elizabeth that she's going to go with her to the chopper to get her to New York. While Elizabeth is not sure she wants to go. Julie and her share a nice scene. I do think it's a scene we don't see in the TV series much. It kind of felt like it was a throwback to the original series, where Dinah or Julie and Elizabeth talk about peace and fighting for peace and what's going on. It kind of felt like a real life thing. what I want to mention is what follows up with that is the scene I was talking about in the beginning of the episode. It's the scene between Willie and Elizabeth. You don't like this scene? Oh, interesting. I enjoyed Willie in the scene very much because I think that Robert Englund puts on a very good performance and he harkens back to Harmony. And obviously, we're sad that Harmony is not here. But I'm glad that they have a little bit of a callback there. It's done very subtly. It's obviously not overdone, but Robert Englund's performance of that, I think, is very well done. I did like the score behind it as well.
Yeah, I mean, I talk a lot about about Donovan and Ham, but I do think that, Robert Englund is probably the most well-known actor from this show.
Yeah.
And he's definitely one of the most talented. Yeah. And I think maybe it's just because it's Elizabeth talking about her crush on Nathan.
Okay, yes.
And in comparison, Willie is talking about something a little bit deeper.
I get that. I do understand where you're coming from that. And I guess it does put a shadow on it. I guess I just looked at completely at Robert Englund's performance, and I really, in a sea of a weekly series, sea of not very great performances, good, fun performances, not very deep, great performance. This was a step a little bit into the deeper waters with somebody having an actual, genuine, emotional thought and able to confer it, especially for someone who's not very good at the language.
Yeah, Willie's definitely the heart of the show.
Yeah, 100%. That's exactly what I was leading to when it comes down to it. And we find that out later on as well. We get a little bit more into that during the episode in a few episodes from now. We'll get there. But yeah, so that was the scene I was talking about. I did like that one quite a bit. The next one we jump to is Ham and Elias trying to fix their van, whereas Ham confronts Julie for not being very Julie. He's like, he even has the moment like, aren't you one who always put the cause before the individual? And Julie's like, I don't care. I promised her. I didn't like that because that's exactly what we're saying. Donovan, absolutely. Julie? Oh, that works for Julie. That bothered me?
No, I think at this point, her character, I don't know how to describe this. It's when a writer they took the character Bible and said, this is what we need them to do in this episode.
Yeah.
So I think at this point, I was just kind of like, And
yeah.
She should be such an important character, but she feels like her purpose is done in the show.
Right. You're not wrong. And I think part of it is, it's actually, to me, it's kind of, they're actually really connected. It's ironic that she is working with Nathan Bates' Science Frontiers and stuff, because one of the problems I have with the show overall is what I mentioned earlier, is that the Science Frontiers and the Open City and that whole thing is one of those story ideas which actually does sound kind of cool on paper.
They're not really doing anything with it. It's just there.
Right. And all it does is take away the fear of the visitors to a degree, because they're just not as oppressive. They're not as it's not as constant pressure on them and everything else. Just kind of, they can walk. Donovan can drive a Corvette to his house. Whereas that's good. Okay. For the original miniseries. But at this point with the war going on and everything else, it just seems like you're taking away the enemy.
Yeah, we didn't have like you said, the broadcast at the beginning, but there is like a war going on in the rest of the country, and even in California.
There should have a juxtaposition of what's going on.
Yeah, let's say in theory, like the visitors won, like LA's not gonna stay a safe harbor. Like that's just.
They're biding their time. If the visitors,
I don't even understand why they would agree to that.
Well, it was partially because of that little pulsometer thing that Nathan had on. That if Nathan dies, then the tanks of red dust will be redispersed in the air. Of course, then they would just let it wait a little bit, let it die back out again, because it died out once, so it will just die out again.
Okay, Diana should have so many of her little scientists working on something for the red dust.
And
instead of just saying, "Oh, it's fine now."
Right. That's exactly my point before. Is like Resistance can come up with an antitoxin. Diana and her scientists can't at this point.
Ridiculous.
Doesn't make any sense. But again, it is what it is. But what I was saying about Julie is having her work there. Julie's like whole storyline now is basically to work for Nathan and be the mole in Science Frontiers, but that takes her away from being an active resistance fighter. Because Ham says it, Ham's like, you can't come with us, you're gonna blow your cover. So basically Julie can't go on resistance missions. So her whole job is to go get information, give it back to it takes her out of the resistance pretty much. Again, not a great way to go with that character specifically. She was always the field marshal, the general. She was the one in the field at this point.
You know, I wish that they had like a clear vision of what their long-term goal was in this show, but it really does feel like each week they wrote an episode.
Yeah, exactly what it was. And from what I remember from the book I was reading, it does, and from other interviews I read, it's that a lot of this was rushed. They were being rushed to air, and I think it was kind of like, all right, hey, you write this episode, you write this episode, you write this episode, you guys got to get this ready to air. Whereas they couldn't actually take that time to sit down and, okay, let's map out an actual storyline and go from A to B to C to D.
This is why you need a bottle episode.
Bingo. So Kyle shows up, and Kyle actually pushing because he wants to see Elizabeth again. Ham's Ham. He rejects him at first, but once Kyle tells him how to fix the van, which is, the usual moment, I guess, in this kind of situation, Ham's gonna bring him aboard for the mission, despite Elias's misgivings. I do like that. I do like that conversation. He's talking about Elizabeth. He's talking about some girl. By the time he knows Elizabeth, she'll be a long way from there.
About 30 feet from where they're standing now.
Pretty much, exactly. That happens to be that way. I do like Kyle, his journey a little bit, like outside of the Elizabeth Robin thing. This does seem kind of him. He's obviously, he said he dropped out of Stanford. Although we don't know that anymore, do we? We don't know he dropped out of Stanford. We don't know that, but he's just an adventure-seeking kid. He gets caught up with the resistance because it's kind of a cool thing to do in a way. He obviously doesn't like the visitors, so he seemed like this is exactly the kind of thing he would do, is join resistance.
So the last thing that I wrote in my notes is, Kyle says that he isn't much of a joiner, but he'll be around. I wrote, is he Ham? Is he supposed to be Ham? Do we need a secondary Ham?
It's a nicer version of
Ham and Elias from the original miniseries had a baby.
It's not a bad option. Yeah, you know what? I think part of it is because we need a good-looking version of Ham. Sorry, Michael Ironside. And it's not.
And we also need someone who is kind of street smart and savvy, like Elias still exists.
He's not street smart and savvy anymore. That's the problem. He should be, but he's not written that way, is he? He's written as
you can be a restaurant owner and street smart and savvy. You could do both.
Absolutely could do both. If he had more employees, he could actually get out of the Creole for a little bit and do his thing. But we can't have that either. We can't have nice things. So that's why they had to do it with Kyle. But I don't like okay. So when I say I like him, I do like what they do with him. But I will say he's an unnecessary character from the get-go. To be completely honest, he's only real. The only thing he's really there for is for Elizabeth. To be honest, that sucks. I wish actually they did more with him and Nathan. Because there are times when him and Nathan kind of go at each other a little bit during the series, to still to come, not even just what we saw at the end of last episode, which didn't happen anyway at this point. And those are always the times I like Kyle the best. It feels like that's a relationship worth exploring. The son of the despot, the son of the guy, of the king of Los Angeles, so to speak, who's not really on board with everything. And it's not exactly a new story. It's a typical story, but it's interesting given the scenario and everything else that's going on in the series as far as aliens and all that
stuff. It's also a little bit of a boring story. Even today, like writers, you can have a character who doesn't like their parent who isn't want to be Holden Caulfield. Like, you can do that. It's fine. It's allowed.
That's a good point. That's good. That's a good comparison. I like that.
Give me a beatnik.
Fair enough. So we go back to Donovan in the room again. This is actually what the eating thing I mentioned the last time comes up. But more importantly, Donovan doesn't give up enough information to Diana yet, because Diana's pushing and she baits him very obviously. We discover that Donovan and Julie are married. So they obviously haven't gotten the same information that we haven't gotten, that Donovan and Julie are no longer really a thing. The visitors think they are still.
Oh, they are.
They are kind of still. But then we jump back. We get to see Ham visiting Donovan's place.
Yeah, because Ham is worried that, Donovan isn't around. Because Ham and Donovan are the couple of the show. They're the buddy cop. They're Tango and Cash. They're Mel Gibson and Danny Glover.
Yeah, they're Lethal Weapon. Absolutely. You're not wrong. You're not wrong. This fight was interesting to me. It was kind of like I liked the fight because for the first time in a while, it actually felt like, if you remember back in the first miniseries where Donovan got on board the mothership, Donovan struggled with that visitor when he was fighting him. Since then, we get the weekly series. I mean, Donovan punches him in the helmet and they're down. They become so much weaker.
I have to think Donovan's been working out. I mean, did you see those abs?
Okay, that's fair. You're not wrong. That's fair.
Like this guy said, I need to be able to hit that visitor
just in the helmet and just give him a concussion. So
and not break my hand.
Fair.
Something they don't show in movie fights is you hit someone in the face, you're gonna hurt your hand. That's why you aim for the stomach, ribs, kidneys.
Those are good shots. Yeah, kidney shot. Take them down. Don't take it down. You take them in the leg. Take out their knee with a foot. Even more important than the punch.
Now, do you think we have like self-defense classes for humans against visitors of like where their weak points are? Like you take a self-defense, you learn like where the weak point on a guy is. Like, do we think we learn where the weak point on the visitor is?
I think the resistance definitely. I think anybody knows, and Ham knows. Ham with the World Liberation Front there, who's coming to take over the resistance. They've already thought this out.
He thinks that punching them is the helmet's the weak spot. The helmet, the protected part. The part where they have the most protection.
Right.
Totally.
I love it.
Yeah.
But it's a good fight for that reason. It kind of felt like for Simon genuine that I actually had concern that because he was beating Ham up, not beating him up, but Ham was struggling a little bit.
I did think it was a really great fight, and I really like that it looks like an actual fight. Like this looks like guys really hitting each other.
Yeah, Ham was tired after it a little bit. It was kind of like he knocked over the thing on the shelf because he was all thing. I like the fact he got to rip off from the face again too. It's like you don't get to see that as much in the series, budget and all that, I guess. But that's what you do. They always grab at the face and rip it off. That's what makes it a V show at that point with the lizards.
But I do wish that people would see a scene like this more, because I feel like a lot of film and television is missing out on realistic looking fights, and this legitimately did a good job. And part of me thinks that Marc Singer and Michael Ironside really fought behind the scenes for those type of choreographed fight type things and stunts to be in the show.
I agree.
That's where the budget went.
Good day.
Stunt guys.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, I do know that Marc Singer was one of those guys who pretty much demanded to do his own stunts. He wanted to do his own fight sequences and stuff.
Oh, I meant like with people they were fighting.
Gotcha. Fair enough. Okay, that makes sense. I think Michael Ironside probably did a lot of his own stunts too. I kind of feel that way. Especially at this point. Maybe not as much nowadays, but
like 90?
Yeah, he's old. He's definitely up there. I wonder how old he is. He's got to be in at least his 70s.
Oh, he's got to be older than 70s. Gotta be.
We're going to find out. We're going to find out right now, live in there at 73.
I feel really bad. I'm gonna go.
Only 73. Marc Singer, by the way, 75. 75 for Marc Singer.
Are you kidding me? Marc Singer is older than Michael Ironside?
He is.
I would have thought he was like 10 years older. I feel really bad.
Michael Ironside, yeah, he's definitely a unique individual. His look is very unique. He's a very old man looking guy.
I feel
it's the hairline. It's the.
I was gonna say, I think it's the hairline.
It absolutely is the hairline.
Okay, so it's the 80s, so they were like significantly younger. Clearly, right. This was nearly. Yeah, this is a long time ago. This is over 40 years ago. Okay, so hear me out. People in their like, let's say early 30s to 40s are hitting that point where it's like some people look a lot older, some people look about that age, and some people still look a lot younger. And it's really hard to gauge their ages. I would have thought Michael Ironside was, maybe in his 40s at that point. Clearly not.
Those abs from Marc Singer definitely probably make you think younger.
I honestly do think it's the hairline.
Yeah, no, it
and
is.
Facial hair. Facial hair on guys really throws me. I'm like, I don't know, man. You could be like 40, you could be 20. I don't know.
You never know. I get it. I honestly understand, and I too will agree because I'm looking at it when I watch them right now. I too thought Michael Ironside was older when I saw him. He looks older. He looks a lot older. It is what it is. Either way, we get on to the next part. I actually wrote this in my notes now. I don't know why I wrote it here. I think it's because I remember the rest of the episode from there. We don't get any Jedi powers from Elizabeth this week. Not one.
Probably because they learned the lesson from the whole dog fiasco.
That's what it is. At the same time, for a show that really ends up banking on Elizabeth's mea culpa or Deus Ex Machina actions of saving the day with her powers, not one. And I like that. I'm glad they did that. They should have done that more.
Or
she
has a love spell on Kyle.
That's a possibility, though. They didn't use the Jedi score that they have when
that's true, but I feel like
the power.
I feel like in the next episode when she uses her power, they didn't use any score. I'll have to go back and watch this again.
Yeah, have to say. All right, so go back to the next thing we see is Ham and Julie and Elizabeth trying to make their way past the roadblocks. Ham does his typical, I'm going to beat up the officer who's at the roadblock and drive on through. The last sequence is fine. Nothing big there for the most part, except for Julie has to wear the motorcycle helmet right from the get-go pretty soon after because she's got to stay hidden. Is she wearing it in the van or not? I can't remember if she's wearing it in the van.
I don't think so.
Maybe not. I could be wrong. I could be wrong too. I mean, it's not that important. We'll talk about it later. But then we jump from there. We jump to Kyle at his house, getting the bikes ready. Obviously, has this like unlimited supply of bikes. I got to assume. Like, it doesn't matter.
This show's motorcycle budget or dirt bike budget was
through the roof.
Ridiculous. Were they even sponsored? Because I don't feel like I saw any brand names.
Yeah, I didn't see any brand names either, and I actually thought about that myself because the V ones are always painted anyway. They're always painted white with the V symbol, so nothing there, and nothing on Kyle's that I can see. But I kind of wonder if they didn't take over like a soundstage that came with a lot of bikes or something like that, or somebody provided them with bikes or something like that. Not as a sponsorship. It's like, we have these extra bikes. Oh, well, we'll use those. We'll make that work.
Oh, that makes a lot more sense.
Yeah, man. Like,
although, it would have been more interesting if they used horses. Because they clearly still have an equestrian budget.
That's true. That's true. You will get your horses at one point. I guarantee you get some more horses in the show. That much I do remember. So, so we have Kyle on the bikes. Kyle tells Robin to go. Why don't you go inside, Robin? I don't want you to meet Daddy. Pretty much at this point. But a good conversation between Nathan and Kyle. This is the one I do like. I know maybe it is Holden Caulfield, but I like the fact that he kind of spits a little truth at Nathan. And Nathan, again, it's hard to figure out. I can never tell. After his conversations with Diana versus his conversations with anybody on the resistance side, I can't tell. I can't read his character. Like, there's a part of me that says he is just biding time. He does. I almost feel like there's a tale of two worlds here. He wants his power. Absolutely wants his power. Is he willing to sacrifice humanity to get it? I I don't know. Like, is he not a good guy, but is he not a bad
Oh,
guy?
I kind of read him differently.
Okay.
So definitely agree he wants power,
Right.
but he knows that he doesn't want like anything bad to happen to humanity to get it. Like he's not like Donovan's mom, Eleanor.
Okay.
He is aware that he's not going to have any power amongst the visitors. He needs people.
Right.
But also, he does kind of need the visitors because he wouldn't have the power that he has without them.
Right. So it's this back and forth in your mind about what he's actually doing.
Although he also is aware that with his position comes vulnerability and a target. So I think a lot of his effort is to ensure that that target, no one's shooting at it.
Right. I feel like this story could have been served well if there was and again, this might have been if we had gotten more than one season and if the budget hadn't been sliced, so we need to cut off characters. Resistance and Bates actually started working together more to agree, like enemy of my enemy is my friend to degree. Nathan working to punch the visitors off the planet while getting the power to stay in control, kind of to be in control of the afterwards.
Well, at this point, if he becomes a war hero, I mean, he's getting Reagan out. He's next president.
That's true. He would absolutely make the president thing, and the resistance couldn't really fight him on that, to be honest.
Bush who? We're all about Bates.
It's true. That's what you're running on. I mean, he has cigars half the time, too.
I just thought that was common. I didn't really think much about it. Movies may have skewed my view of things.
Maybe. Okay, so we get back to more time with Sean, getting more of his Procol drug that keeps him under control. Then we go back to Donovan, and Donovan figures out what's going on.
Oh, wait, well, before that, go back to Sean for a second. Yes. Okay, so Donovan wants to go out and play catch with Sean, which we established clearly. Sean is a big fan, or was when he was a normal human child, a big fan of baseball.
Right.
And Donovan just like Sean clearly does not like baseball anymore. But Donovan keeps looking at it like this is the only thing he knows about his son is that he once liked baseball. This is clearly the only thing he has. And at this point, Sean is going to grow up to be Ray Kinsella from Field of Dreams. And he's going to be bitter. And whenever anyone mentions baseball, he's going to get real pissed about it.
You're not wrong. I mean, that's the writers again having to hone out. Well, we have this as their connector. We can't bother developing any other connecting points. It's got to be.
I actually think that makes sense, though. Because he was taken at such a young age when, I mean, I don't know. He was like, how old was he supposed to be? Like 8?
A little bit older, but yeah.
8, 9, 10. But when you're that age and you really like something, let's say baseball, that could be like your whole freaking personality. 100%. So it would make sense for, even though they, for whatever reason, aged him up significantly, that's the only thing Mike really has to go on because he really doesn't know Sean at all anymore. No. Well, and there's not really much to know.
He didn't live with them forever. And the thing, he was the weekend father at that point. Obviously, they connected over baseball. That was the thing they obviously worked with the most. But yeah, no, you're not wrong. Sean is going to get pissed eventually. But Donovan tells Sean the code because Sean pushes for it, which is always kind of weird. Like, that didn't tip you off at all, Mike, that he's making you remember a specific coded transmission.
Well, he's also drugged.
That's true. That's fair. You know what? I'll give you that. We have enough things to complain about. I'll give you that one. But then Donovan does figure it out because of the slip up. And this is where it does actually come in handy that Diana still thinks that she's a little girl at this point.
Definitely.
They put her in the newspaper as an article. A good mock-up of the newspaper. But they put Elizabeth on the front page as a little girl. Donovan figures out what's going on, figures out all the doors are locked, tries to break out, and I love Donovan's line here. Just looks around. The horror strings are going again. And he just goes, Elizabeth. Great acting by Marc. I love great acting there. But it's so kind of. I still have a hard time, though, getting past the fact that how stupid this whole thing was set up and like how it doesn't make any sense at all. So now Lydia is going to kill Donovan because they got what they needed. And so
They
Lydia
didn't need
decides.
anything else.
So Lydia, I know nothing else. They don't know. They want to know anything about the resistance, where the rest of the resistance are. Like, there's so much more information you can get out of him. But not only do Lydia say, "Oh, I'll get rid of Donovan, I'll kill him," so she walks in with the holograph thing on, with the laser gun. Like, why are you bothering at this point? like, why are you going to put on a thing to look like Julie for the 30 seconds where you have the gun out, Mike? And then he hits her. Just go in with your guns blazing, send the troopers in and just kill them at that point if that's what you're going to do.
Kind of like something you could insert into the vents.
Right. It's just, you don't need to do it. You can just put a gun through it and you can stop the room with a gun. It's stupid, but does get Donovan out of there. He knocks her out. Although, one thing I do know all the time is, so Donovan must think that he kissed Lydia, not Diana, because he has no idea they switch back and forth. All he knows is that Lydia was dressed as Julie, the Julie skin, so to speak. Either way, so Donovan,
it would have been more interesting if they had him for a while.
I agree. They actually could have kept him for a little while, kept him thinking it was real. Even like, I know how they would have done it outside the room, the holograph generator thing, but I think that would have been a cool concept to actually explore. I agree. What's funny about this next thing too is that, so he knocks out Lydia. This other like visitor guard just comes like walking in, like just kind of like walks in, going like, "What's going on?" I think it's like, why do we have dumb bad guys? Doesn't make any sense. But all right, next up we have Kyle meeting up with Ham and Julie and Elizabeth Dunn, as they say, which I gotta say, I like that.
Yeah, I assumed it was a reference
to Dominique Dunn. I assume that's what it's got to be too, which actually surprises me because they actually have some sense of history of the show. So I don't know who did that, but there's somebody there that has history of the show. Maybe it actually could have been Julie. It could have been a Faye Grant herself, I wonder. Maybe she just said the name and it wasn't even the script. But I have to assume that that's what that was. I could be wrong. But I'm hoping I'm right. I'm hoping I'm right with that.
Yeah, I assume that's not just but the fact that her first name is still Elizabeth.
Right. Why? Go all out, call her Dominique. I mean, seriously, change her name to
anything else.
Even go with Betty.
I mean, bare minimum. Bare
minimum.
Dye her hair a different color. Like, give us a disguise.
I mean, Julie's on her motorcycle helmet. Put her a motorcycle helmet on her, for Christ's sake, something. But, oh, wow. So Julian and Elizabeth meet up. Ham and Kyle, they go on the bikes to head towards the chopper. They're getting to the chopper, as it were.
Yes. He even said, "Get to the chopper." And I wrote down that Predator came out in 1987.
Again, everybody's watching V and getting inspired by it. That's what I'm getting out of this show at this point, all these things. Now, here's something I had for you. I thought about this the first time I saw it, and I don't believe it is, but when Donovan gets out of the location, he knocks out the visitor and jumps into the limo to drive away. Did that guy look just like Martin to me? I don't think it was Frank Ashmore. If you ever get a chance to look at it again, it just feels like I got so, I'm like, is that Martin? Martin's dead. What is this? It really baffled my brain for a second. It really does look like him. But either way, he gets into a limo and drives off. And I don't know about you, but I was expecting to see a repeat of Liberation Day. I was expecting to see the hubcap come off and start spinning again.
That would have been fantastic. That hubcap. Now that's the shot that should be reused
over and over and over again. That should be like the Paul Rudd on
yes,
Conan there. John Conan, that's right. That should be the one that you use all over and over. Every time they have a car chase, I just jump. It doesn't have to fit the scene. Just jumps.
Do it, because that was magic.
Absolute magic. Use that as much as you can. All right, so they get to the China Flat, or the chopper there. Not China Flats. That's the next episode or a couple episodes from now. We get them there, and they start heading towards the chopper. Elizabeth, Ham, and Julie Kyle spots the doofus visitor who can't stay hidden. Robin can stay hidden behind a single tree, but this visitor can't stay hidden behind a single tree. And that's when Kyle screams, gets the chopper, and tries to walk.
How?
These are your high-tech people. These are your like.
This is the first planet they're conquering, right?
Must be. It must be. It's so bad. It's like
these are people. How? They need a lesson from the Viltrumites or something.
Please.
This is not going well.
No. Of course, they get to send the V bikes again after them.
Oh yes, they're at motorcycle chase number 2.
No, 2 in one episode. This is definitely pushed the dirt bike crowd of 14-year-old boys.
Well, from my understanding about the 80s, is that they were really into extreme.
That's right. They were trying to change it from V to X.
Exactly.
So we get to the point where Diana is on the chopper with a visitor dressed as a human, I guess, is what it is. The chopper pilot is dressed as a human, which I thought was interesting. Like they went that far, I guess, but okay. But you have Diana in there too. So what are you hiding from, really? It doesn't make much sense to be like either be visitors or have Diana dress. If you want to try to dress up, then have Diana dress up too. It does seem weird to me to have a visitor dressed as a human and then Diana there as well. Especially because like 2 seconds later, the visitor guards are there in their full garb, full get up.
Interesting. I'm thinking they couldn't talk the pilot into the outfit.
Maybe that's what it was. Ashley was like, "No, I'm not doing that. I'll take the gun, but that's I'm not doing anything else." Would you get a little bit more of Diana and Michael Ironside and Ham, a little back and forth? Always good, always golden. Diana insulting her, Ham insulting back. It's always good. But we have a little bit of the Clark Kent thing here. Julie has the motorcycle helmet on, and you're telling me after all the time Diana has interacted with Julie in the conversion chamber, in Science Frontiers, that she can't see Julie Parrish behind the somewhat minorly tinted glass?
They're lizards. They don't have good eyesight.
Sure, she's wearing sunglasses and everything. Of course, as soon as we're about to get that, Diana's about to solve that by having her take her helmet off. That's when Donovan comes to the rescue, because Donovan just drove however long he drove. The whole thing was about timing. Oh my God, we only have a certain amount of time to get this all set up. Oh, we only have a certain amount of time to get there. But Donovan can drive from the location, obviously at top speed, and get there. No questions asked. In a quick
because he's getting from point A to point B, PLD. And as we see throughout this entire show, that's the show.
Well, Donovan is like the lead character, so he's probably best for getting point A to point B. So he probably knows all the secret back.
He's got that Ferris Bueller time thing going on.
That's what it is. Getting the horror saying, "Oh my God, it's Donovan." He drives over and knocks people out, and then Ham. I love this exchange. Donovan's right there, just as close as Ham is, pretty much. But Ham's like, "Give me the laser," and then Ham aims the laser at Diana, trying to get her to let Elizabeth go. And then ends up shooting the guard next to her, and Diana, I guess, is frightened enough to drop Elizabeth and let her run off. I guess that makes sense. Diana is not exactly a warrior type; she's a scientist. She's so she gets scared of the laser blast. I get that. That makes sense. And they get away. So then the final sequence we get is in the Club Creole, where Ham, of course, tells them that he gave the visitor limo back with the tires slashed and the fuel tank filled with sugar, I think it is, and all that stuff. Funny moment. But more importantly, we get the sequence with Elizabeth, who says that she does not want to leave. So we're going to let the 2-year-old dictate, the 2-year-old dictate where she is safer, where she's better off.
I mean,
I want to go. And then they're like, "Oh, so you want to stay? All right, well, then you can stay. You can stay."
There needs to be, I can't believe they don't come up with a better plan.
Yeah.
Than just having her stay at the Club Creole.
Gotta be something. I don't know. But then we get the line, like you said, about Kyle not being a joiner, but he'll be around. There we go. That's pretty much how it ends.
Okay, do we think that Elizabeth should have bunked with Willie? Because that is the last place anyone would ever look for her.
You're not wrong. That's probably the best idea. That's probably the best because he knows everything. He knows that he's got the magical doula powers. He knows how to keep her fed. And he knows the visitors, enough about visitors so that he could probably keep her in. He knows the Marc Mazan, so he can teach her about this religion.
Yeah, where was that? It's fine. Don't want it.
Don't want it. Well, unfortunately, it's not completely gone, but that's okay. That's another episode. There's one more. I think it's only one more. Maybe 1.5. But alrighty then. What are your thoughts? Well, wrapping this up as far as this episode goes. Have we jumped the shark yet? Overall thoughts, go from there.
I do think it. I do think the shark has been jumped.
Wow.
Or, no. Okay. I think this is we're Fonzie on the skis.
Okay.
And we're on the water going towards the lift.
Okay. All right.
I think that's where we are.
I think that's where we are too. The funny thing is, there are episodes I can think of, having watched this a few times now. My prediction is we get to a point where we absolutely jump the shark, but then there is at least part of an episode which makes you feel they're almost going in the right direction, like they course correct a little bit. I'm like, this could be good, but then they fall apart again. So it's unfortunate, but we'll get there. Yeah, I do. I like this one. Let's say out of the first, obviously all of these episodes are inferior to the original. And I think it's safe to say that all these episodes are inferior even to the final battle. As far as against each other goes, I think it definitely has gotten progressively worse as we go along still. First one was pretty good. Second one was decent enough. It was a little chaotic. Third one was, even though it's kind of hard to mention as it's not canon, but it was fine. This one was...
Yeah, I do think with the third episode and the issues they had with it really threw them, and it just feels like they haven't regained their balance.
Right.
And as far as that I've watched into it, it looks like they just didn't
ever really truly recover.
Yeah.
I do know of one episode coming up, which I know I actually can confidently say I enjoyed, even with some minor nitpicks. So we'll get there. But overall, we're here. We're still here. We're making our way through. I still enjoy talking about it with you.
Yeah, it's like fun. Like the show is still entertaining. It's just kind of baffling.
It is. It's fun to explore these things and what could have been possibly, what is and what maybe should never have been. I don't know, but we'll get there. I guess that's where we're going to wrap things up. Again, we're like triple the time of the episode itself. I think at this point, double or at least double. Where can the folks find you, Lego?
I can be found on YouTube at Legoland13, or you can find me on Instagram under Cage Unleashed.
Nice. I love that show. I want more from that show, just so you know.
Slowly getting there. Just finding the time.
No rush, but rush.
Well, the next episode I'm doing is G-Force, which I'm just not looking forward to.
Yeah, that's a not one of my favorite from his catalogs. I'll admit, I'll agree, but you got to do good with the bad, and I'm sure there's still fun stuff you can talk about with it. So you can find me at Paul_Denuzio on Twitter. You can find me at PLD Projects on Threads, and I think I'm Paul Denuzio on Blue Sky. Okay, I'm under all these things. You can find me. You can also find me here on YouTube at this channel. Doing all sorts of shows. I do review, like I said, every other week with Lego. I do Two Mediocre White Dudes every other week with PJ Campbell. Holy Snooks with Maddie Gunner, our Star Wars podcast. I do my Queen podcast every Friday. I guess that's all I have to say. If you do like this, hit that like, hit that subscribe. Let us know what you think. Leave those comments. Leave those ratings on the audio. You want to help the channel even further, patreon.com/PLD Projects. Guys really help me pay for all the stuff, all the StreamYard stuff, and all the Zoom stuff, and all the thumbnail stuff that I get done. All that stuff. It's all pretty much goes back into the show anyway. But I really do appreciate it. People like Austin Goodell, Jeremiah Morris, Matthew Kearns, Brendan Buckingham, Jeff Alterman. Couldn't do it without you guys and the rest of the patrons as well. Great chat we got going on with them. But I think that's it. Of course, stay tuned for next time, where we go into an episode with a visitor kung fu artist himself, teaching the visitor military, visitor martial art. I believe it's Ravok.
I called it Brovok.
Oh, I like that. That's a nice tease right there. But until next time, everybody, pray te nama. See you next week or next time. Yeah, you know what I mean. Bye now.